Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth here. So today I wanted to do this video in regards to contentment being one of modern society's biggest struggles. Obviously, we live in a material world. We live in an era of chronic luxury with advertising that's going all over the place, from everything you read, from newspapers to billboards to online. We're constantly bombarded with marketing and consumerism. And so I think contentment is something that's really much lacking today, especially because today our societal structures are built up to make us fail in terms of not being content. It's always this chronic need to have more in your life, whether that's more material goods or just to never be content with where you are at your job. You're always trying to strive to become the, at a higher level or get that new promotion or that job title. And today it's like the master degree is the new bachelor degree and the PhD is the new master degree to some extent. So I discovered my lack of contentment a lot through my life of, spiritual development and journeying, but I really noticed it at the age of 22 when I studied yoga in India. I realized how much materialism, to some degree, ruled my life. The thing is, I was never really attached to materialism in general like some people were, but I noticed I did a lot of stupid things like, oh, because that shirt was $5, I would buy it, but I would never wear it. So it's like I had a closet swimming full of clothes that I really only wore like 10 or 15% of what was actually in my closet. So I guess, to some degree, that's not a horrible thing to spend $5 on a shirt comparing it to like $125 and never wearing it or wearing it once. But we definitely are in an era where people have to understand is that when you're looking at the food industry, marketing in general, especially for any sort of luxury brand or just any consumer good in general, it doesn't matter if it's for like H&M versus Rolex. These companies have think tanks that understand how our brain works and how to get into kind of like the nucleus of our brain to be able to make us want to be more addicts, emotional high addicts. There's a lot of controversy going on with social media over the last couple of years because some people have come out and talked about certain things that are going on in Silicon Valley in the tech industry where these online social media tools are made for us to become addicted to them. So they know how the wiring of the brain works. And neurons that fire together wire together. That's why something like pornography is so dangerous for somebody's mind, because it's like once you get addicted to that, you tend to need more of it, and then once you want more of it, you need some other stimulus. So that's where it's like people, they might watch like regular sex and then it gets more perverse as time goes on, because the level of high that they have, it can only sustain them for so long. So they need something that's either harder or more perverse or something like that. And that's the same with like drugs and alcohol and any sort of stimulant, tobacco or drugs in general. And marijuana is a drug. Yes, marijuana can heal or help things, like especially a cancer patient. If they're trying to kill their pain, they're probably maybe better off smoking pot versus taking Vicodin or something and getting hooked on a pharmaceutical drug. But the reality is most people that have to smoke pot every day to function, their whole world revolves around that drug and getting high and smoking pot, to where it's like it is a drug. It is addicting in itself. So lack of contentment, we see this a lot with materialism. People are shopping addicts. You get this little high the first time, that in that moment of buying that car or that new jacket or something like that. And eventually it wears off and then you want to get something else. A lot of times people who are lonely and they're alone and they're single, they tend to become shopping addicts because they don't have anything else to do in their life, or they don't really have anyone or anything to spend their money on, so they're buying a bunch of consumeristic items. I think that's not abnormal. So I think a lot of contentment in the West is because our society is so luxurious and we are bombarded to see what everybody else has. You see what your friends have on Facebook. you see what Hollywood actresses and actors have, obviously through movies and just this like fake world that they live in, and stuff like that. And in addition to, I think, a lot of lack of spiritual fulfillment or a belief or a faith in God tends to drive people to not have contentment. Throughout my world travels, the happiest I've ever been has been at the point of being poor and living out of a bag or 2 bags if I moved abroad. Like when I moved to Australia and Germany, I went abroad with 2 suitcases. When I did the India and the whole Camino experience, I was living out of a bag. And throughout those world travels, the people who have been the most content in their life have been the poorest people. And a family of 8 people living in a shack on the beach in Fiji. They've been the kindest and happiest people I've ever met. And a lot of the people in India who were very kind, they came from poor communities where it's like grandma, uncle, mom, dad, the kids, and the like, lived in the same house. So you have like 10 different people living, like grandma sleeping in the kitchen and the uncle sleeping in the living room and the family sleeps in the bedroom. But they've been very happy and content with what they have, and they're more attached to that family commitment. So I just want to read some quotes. I have quite a bit of them. And they come from all different angles. Some are from the Bible, some are just anonymous quotes. And then I want to share some thoughts about our brain. So Luke 12:15 says, "Then he said to them, 'Watch out, be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life doesn't consist in abundance of possession.'" So I think for those people who are not happy and satisfied with what they have, I'm not saying that they're greedy people, but they might be blinded by some form of greed or just this need to have all this sort of possession. Like you see this today in business. You have black pants, right? So I need a pair of black pants, but what type? Are they going to be skinny jeans? Are they going to be tight black leggings? Will they be a nice flare black pant? Will they be a dress pant that is skinny? Will they be flares, bell bottom? It's like there's all different types of black pants you can find, and it's like, well, you need a pair of black pants, but then you buy one pair and then you're like, oh, you know what? Like I really just want like the palazzo style. So then you buy the baggier pair, and then you can just start getting, down the rabbit hole of continuously buying and keeping stuff. So Hebrews 13:5 says, "Keep your lives free from the love and money, and be content with what you have, because God said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" And so I think if you can put a lot of faith and trust in God to know that you will somehow be provided for. A lot of times people have these pipeline dreams of like winning the lottery. I don't think that's it. But if you're at the point of becoming flat broke and somebody gives you a job for, like $200, like that is a huge blessing in disguise. God sent you some opportunity to get some more money in your life, even if it is temporary. I love this quote. It says, "Contentment is an attitude that says I will be satisfied with what God has given me." So I think especially today, because we are not satisfied with what we have, we really have to sit and be in peace and look around at the surroundings of your life. Are your Maslow hierarchy of needs met? And can you be content currently with what you have? There's nothing wrong with wanting to have like an upgrade or to need more, but the reality is there's a difference between a need and a want. And do you really need it, or do you just want it? So you can ask yourself that question. Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Faithfulness is the best relationship. I love that quote. Because contentment is a form of wealth, and I've talked about this in other videos about health being wealth, but if you are just happy and satisfied with what you have, and you have faith, especially in something higher than you, I think things will naturally unfold in your life in the timing that it's meant to. Let's see. You can own everything in the world, but if you lack contentment, you'll never be happy. I think that's pretty straightforward, and that's a great quote. Contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty. So yeah, a lot of people definitely get stuck and hooked on materialism just in general. And some of the people who have the most things in the world are the least happy. So there really is something to that whole poor but happy type of scenario. And I remember at the building that I work at in downtown Seattle, one of the Amazon guys was talking to the security guard, and he was saying, he goes, I don't understand my kids. He's like, they have everything. They have computers, phones, iPads, iPods, all the toys in the world, and they're not happy. And and then you go to a place like India where it's like a poor kid just rolling like a bike tire down the road, and they're like the happiest children in the world. I really think there is something just within us that we will never be satisfied with having an overabundant amount of wealth unless you are super spiritually grounded and very thankful for everything that you have. All right. The next quote, I think this one's from the Dalai Lama. If one's life is simple, contentment has to come. Simplicity is extremely important for happiness. Having few desires, feeling satisfied with what you have is very vital. Satisfaction with just enough food, clothing, and shelter to protect you from the elements. So there is a difference in terms of living with your basic needs being met versus living a life in excess and a life of kind of pleasure to some degree. There is this whole movement. Minimalism has started to come back. I know a lot of people who've hiked the Camino, they tend to declutter and downsize their life when they get back from the Camino, because it is so liberating living out of a bag and people don't want to be bombarded with a bunch of shit in their life. And I've written other blog links about simplicity and kind of minimalism in general and how living a simple life can lead to a very happy life. So check that out down below in the information box there. But, back in the olden days, in old culture, it's like people worked to survive. And to some degree, yeah, we are still working to survive, but we're not working and cultivating the land in terms of just trying to, grow some cabbage and some beets so we can actually have food that's on the table. And, we're not trading a cabbage for a basket of eggs and things like that. So all of our basic needs can be easily met in the Western world today, for the most part. Not everybody. Obviously, you have poor communities and things like that where they don't make enough money, but the reality is a lot of people today can still somehow find something, whether it's a shelter or some food bank, or, getting donations from people or local communities and churches that are housing homeless women or men at night. And so to some degree, it's like we will still somehow always be taken care of if there are certain things in your life path, whether it's you're trying to get yourself out of the situation, right? Like some people just choose to be homeless. They don't want to get out of that cycle, and that's, the life that they've chosen. So the thing is today, especially with the social media, online, internet culture, is that we've been programmed through our brain. And the thing is, I've talked about it in other videos. I will link that down below, but we are emotional high addicts. Every time you get a text message from somebody you love, your brain is getting hit with some form of, happy hormone. When you eat pleasurable food or something sweet like chocolate, your brain is getting hit. When you have sex, your brain is getting hit. When people you have over 100 likes on a picture, you're getting happy from it. So we are emotional high addicts. It's because our brains are constantly getting hit with all of these hormones through these external things that are happening, stuff that humans have never had before. So certain things like mental health and depression are on the rise. And when you fall out of love with somebody, or someone you really like no longer texts you that much, you might go through a little bit of depression. It's because it's almost like your reward center in the brain is going on some form of like a detox. It's the same type of a detox that a drug addict or alcoholic is going through. It's like their body is craving that attention, but it's not getting it. And your brain doesn't care if you're getting that high from a drug or from a text message or from having sex. It's like the brain can't tell where it's coming from. It's just coming through the same physiological response. So the thing with today is that dopamine is the reward neurotransmitter of your brain, and this is telling the brain that this feels good, I want more of that, whatever that may be. And so too much dopamine leads to an addiction. You see this a lot with drugs, sex, and alcohol. Obviously, those are stimulants that people want and crave more of. On the other hand, you have serotonin, which serotonin is the contentment neurotransmitter that tells the brain this feels good, I have enough, I don't want or need any more. However, too little serotonin in your life will lead to depression. So both are needed, but in optimal supply. So there goes that thought process of having balance in your life. So dopamine drives down serotonin, but chronic stress drives down both. So that's really interesting if you think about it, because how stressful our lives are nowadays. It's like no wonder why people are so depressed. You know, you're getting a lot of fulfillment through external pleasures. Like when people are stressed at work, a lot of times their health goes down because they're eating too much junk food. They start to consume more alcohol or other things like that. So these are some things that are really interesting to kind of look and think about in your own life. Like, when do you start to feel really happy and content or satisfied in your life versus the other end of the spectrum? Like, when do you feel depressed? Are you feeling really depressed all the time when somebody no longer messages you? I think this is part of the reason why online dating is such a brutal experience for a lot of people. It's because you're getting this little bit of a high by getting attention from somebody, and then when they ghost and go completely nowhere, it kind of like messes people up. So it's almost like a vicious cycle in itself. The way through contentment, I think, is a lot of spiritual work. I think it's a lot of communication to God and just gratitude in general, being very thankful for what you have, and thanking God, the universe, whatever you believe in, for everything that you have. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on contentment, definitely feel free to share them. It's great to learn from other people to get different perspectives. But yeah, I think just appreciate what you have and don't take it for granted. That would be my two best pieces of advice. So thank you for listening. If you'd like, please support me by subscribing to this channel. You can also support me on Patreon. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and see you guys soon. Okay, bye.